This is the exterior of the Mazda Protege from the driver's side.
Okay, and do you see any labels on the car?
Yes, you can see two of the tape seals that were there when I received the car.
And when you visually inspected the car, were those seals still intact?
Yes, they were intact.
That's B.
This is the exterior of the Mazda Protege, also from the driver's side, the rear section of the car, and you can see another tape seal over the trunk of this vehicle.
From your recollection, was that seal on the trunk intact?
Yes, it was intact.
That's C. So B, D.
This is a photograph from the rear of the vehicle showing the license plate of the Mazda Protege.
And do you see also, can you see from that angle the seals on the trunk here?
Yes, there's one on either side of the trunk.
E.
This is exterior of the same vehicle from the rear passenger side.
And can you see seals on the trunk, the back door, back passenger door, and passenger door?
Yes, there were 3 seals in this photograph that are visible. This is the exterior from the passenger side showing the seal on the rear passenger door.
And is that a closer angle where you can look at the seals closer?
Well, this bay is rather small, so this was as far away as I could get from the vehicle to take the overall photographs.
Last one was E, that was F, and this is G.
Again, this is the exterior of the passenger side of the Mazda Protege showing another seal on the front passenger door.
And jumping forward just a minute, you did trace evidence on this vehicle, correct?
Yes, I did.
And you did it in the trunk of the vehicle.
That's correct, I did.
So I want to focus on the trunk for a moment. Again, what does that appear to be?
This is the tape seal that was on the trunk from the driver's side vantage point.
Is that a close up of that?
Closer, yes. Mm-hmm.
That was H.
And this is a closer shot of that same seal that was on the trunk.
And does that appear to be intact?
Yes, it does.
That's I, Your Honor. J.
This is the seal that's on the passenger side trunk.
K.
This is a close-up of that same seal showing that it is intact.
And I don't know if I mentioned this, but does the seal reference Anderson County Sheriff, and it has a date on it, 5/30/2014,
Yes.
and someone's initials?
Right, all of the seals have the same information.
No more pictures of seals, I promise. All right. L.
This is from the driver's side with the doors open showing the front driver's side compartment.
M.
It's a close-up of the front driver door pocket, the interior.
N.
A slightly closer photograph of the interior and the driver's compartment.
O.
This is the rear driver's side passenger compartment.
P.
It's just a closer shot of the items that were on the driver's side and the rear seat.
And can you make out what those items are at this point with this picture?
It's like a pencil, some facial tissue, and I'm not sure what the Duralast box is, but there's a box there.
That was P. This is Q.
This is the front passenger side compartment.
And items in the floorboard?
Yes, and the seat.
R?
This is the interior door pocket on that front passenger side door.
Appear to be maybe a CD in that compartment.
Yes.
S?
These are the items in the front passenger side floorboard.
And do you see the plastic box there?
Yes, that contained a number of coins.
Okay, and was that collected?
Yes, it was.
And was it processed for prints?
Yes, it was.
And were there latent prints lifted from that box?
Yes, prints were developed and lifted on the box.
And we mentioned the wireless earlier. Is that the wireless that was processed?
Yes, that's the phone charger that I processed.
That's T. U.
This is the center console, the dash area from the passenger side of the vehicle.
And is there an item in there that you see that was processed for prints?
Yes, the cigarette pack was processed.
V.
This is the rear passenger side seat.
And W.
This was a plastic bag on the floorboard and the rear passenger seat.
Do you remember what that contained?
I don't believe I processed that. That may have been Officer Linville.
Did it appear to be trash?
It looks like bags inside a bag.
X.
This is with the trunk open, the trunk of the vehicle.
Okay. And it appears to be maybe one crate in there.
Yes, I believe all the items in the trunk were inside the crate.
And this is where you vacuumed one of the areas.
Yes, it is.
Why?
This is a shot of the front passenger seat with the glove box open.
Z.
This is the center console with the lid lifted.
And in that, that's not the bag that you processed for the prints.
No, it's not. That's the bag that I processed, the one that says cherry sours. This is the front passenger seat floorboard.
Okay. That is double A, Your Honor. And where did this come from?
That's the plastic crate that came from the trunk.
Double B. Double C.
These were items that were removed from the rear driver's side seat.
And we had talked about earlier, and you collected the glasses.
Yes, I did collect the glasses.
Double D.
That was the bag that was on the rear passenger floorboard.
Double E.
That can was under the front passenger seat.
And do you know if Mr. Linville did some processing on that?
I believe he did.
It was DNA processing.
I'm not sure exactly what processing he did.
Double F.
These were items taken from the front passenger door pocket.
And I believe you processed them, but no prints were developed.
Yes, that is correct. That's the phone charger and a napkin from the front passenger seat.
That's double G. Double H.
Items that I removed from the center console of the vehicle.
Double I.
These were items in the front driver door pocket.
Double K.
These were the items from the front passenger floorboard.
All right. The previous one was J, and that was CDs. I may have skipped I. So you make the CDs. I. Double I. And then the bag and the coins would be double K. Double J. And now we're up to double K. Where was this item found?
This receipt was on the rear passenger floorboard.
Now, what does that appear to be?
It's a Home Depot receipt from May 2nd, 2014 for 1 gallon of smart muriatic acid.
Okay. And as a forensic scientist, do you know what muriatic acid is?
It's another name for hydrochloric acid.
Okay. And tell us about hydrochloric acid.
It's a strong acid that has many uses. I used it at the TBI in the drug chemistry section. This particular one, I believe, is used as an industrial strength cleaner. It can be used to clean pools and I read bricks and masonry.
Now, is it, what happens if you pour some of this on you?
It's very corrosive. It would burn your skin. Contact with your eyes would injure your eyes, and the vapors are also dangerous. So when I used hydrochloric acid at the lab, I had to have gloves on, goggles, and I worked under a ventilated hood to keep the fumes from bothering me.
And the container that this would be contained in would be what type of container?
I believe this is sold in like a plastic container of some sort.
And is that a substance that it does not, that it is not corrosive towards plastic?
Right. It would be placed in a container that wouldn't break down due to the acid.
And that was double K. Double L.
This is the the rear seating on the passenger side. I labeled some of the reddish stains that I was able to see just looking under regular light.
And these are the visible stains that you mentioned earlier.
That's correct, yes.
That was double L, this would be double M.
This is that area that reacted under Blue Star. That's the front passenger seat. The floor, I guess it's more like the door frame next to the floorboard.
Okay, and do you remember, that is the area where the Blue Star indicated?
Yes, there was a Blue Star reaction in that area.
Double N.
This is on that back seat on the passenger side. This is another area that reacted under Blue Star, and we marked the section that would be cut out.
Double O.
This is just an after shot of where the cloth was removed from that back seat.
And that would be the next collective exhibit. I think we need to make adjustments on that. And was that the extent of your processing of that vehicle?
Yes, it was.
And in terms of this particular complaint number in this particular case, did you do any other processing of any other items or?
I did not.
Those are my questions.
Is it Agent Whitaker?
No, just Miss Whitaker.
Ms. Whitaker? Officer Whitaker?
No, I'm not an officer.
Ms. Wood.
Yes, please.
Jim Todd, I represent Mr. Cannon. You processed the two vehicles. That was your job, correct?
That's correct.
And you have training to do that, correct?
Yes, I did.
You don't analyze the fingerprints that you left.
That is correct. I do not.
Somebody else does that.
Yes.
And you don't analyze the carpet that you cut out.
Did not do that either.
And that's for someone else to do.
That's correct, yes.
I want to go back to Ms. Burgess's car, which was the Volkswagen.
Okay.
It was messy.
There were a number of items inside that vehicle, yes.
Some of those were women's undergarments,
Yes.
toothbrush,
Yes.
spoons.
Yes.
Did you go through the clothes to see what type of clothes they were? I mean, I know you testified that one was an undergarment, but did you look through the women's clothing to see skirts, high boots, anything detailed about the clothes?
I did not do a detailed inventory of the clothing or the shoes. I just photographed them.
There was a fair number of women clothing items out. I don't want to say outfits, but there was. Do we know how many actual clothing items there were?
I did not do a count on how many. There were a number of items.
And I know you don't do DNA testing, but are you familiar with DNA testing?
I am somewhat familiar, yes.
As part of your job to collect evidence for possible DNA testing, do you know what to look for?
I look for obvious areas of bodily fluids. I swabbed areas that are frequently touched, like the door handles, the steering wheel, the gear shift. Those were the items that I looked for and swabbed.
And the toothbrush that was in the vehicle, you didn't test that.
I did not test
But you
anything.
didn't reserve it for someone else if they wanted to test it.
I returned the toothbrushes to the vehicle, yes.
You returned it to the vehicle or the property?
I don't believe that I collected toothbrushes.
There was a toothbrush in Exhibit 8D. You photographed it, but you didn't collect it.
That is correct, yes.
Did you know this was a missing persons case?
Yes.
Give you a hard time. Is there a reason you didn't want to keep the toothbrush knowing it was a missing persons case?
I don't remember considering that. I don't remember the reasoning.
Okay. There was a spoon. Was it collected into evidence or was it returned to the vehicle?
I know it was documented and then returned to the vehicle.
It was not tested for drug residue.
No, it was not.
What about the phone in Exhibit 8Z? It's in zebra.
I did collect the Samsung Verizon phone.
And that was turned into property.
Yes, it was.
And the contents of her, you call them billfold purses?
The small Coach purse.
Wasn't there something inside of it? It had the Social Security card, but it's been made an exhibit, I guess. I don't want to use the wrong term. Billfold purse, carry-all, what is it? What's the term?
The pink Coach purse and all of the contents in it were collected.
And kept into the property room.
Yes, that's correct.
And those were shown as Exhibit 8X, if I remember correctly.
I don't know the exhibit numbers, I'm sorry.
The Mazda that was analyzed, you're the one that broke the seals on that car, correct?
Yes, I did break the seals.
And you ran several agents. First, you did a visual inspection for stains, and you talked about that, correct?
Yes,
And you tested those with a chemical to determine whether or not what you saw may have been human remains, correct?
I did the presumptive testing for blood.
And those were negative.
That is correct, yes.
And so then you did the Blue Star, is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Is that the only chemical test you did to determine blood that you couldn't see?
Yes, that's correct.
What is in Blue Star? Do you know?
I don't know the chemicals that are in it.
But it reacts to human blood
Yes, it does.
and gives you what sort of indication?
It gives a chemiluminescence, so it creates a glowing effect.
Do you have to turn out the lights?
Yes, you do.
You have to use a black light.
You do not have to use a black light, but you do need to lower the lighting in order to see it.
Do you have anything that can test for human remains, like not blood? I mean, I know you vacuum, but liquid human remains like saliva or mucus or anything like that?
I think we had it as presumptive for saliva, but I don't believe that we saw anything that appeared to be saliva to test.
So did you test for saliva?
No, I did not.
So you have an agent that you spray?
I really don't remember. It wasn't something that we ever used in a case that I worked on, so I can't recall.
What about mucus?
I don't think we had anything specifically for mucus.
So the police department doesn't, or law enforcement does it, or do you know?
I don't know.
In your training, you've never come across anything that can test for mucus?
I don't remember anything specifically for mucus, no.
But you have come across something in your training that can test for saliva?
Yes,
And that was not done here?
that's correct.
Regarding the Mazda, did it appear that the car had been cleaned?
Not specifically, no.
So it had not been detailed in any way?
I don't recall seeing anything that made me think it was detailed.
And as part of your training to process a car that could possibly be a crime scene, you would look to see if the suspect had cleaned or detailed the vehicle, correct?
Yes, that's part of the visual examination.
And you did not see any evidence of that?
I don't recall seeing anything, and I did not note any
Didn't
evidence.
appear that the carpet in the trunk had been replaced?
I did not notice anything that made me think that.
And you could check to see if that was possible, correct?
I mean, there were no missing sections or anything that looked different. It was all uniform, the carpet in the trunk, so.
You were not part of the processing of the home in this case, correct?
That is correct.
Have you processed homes before?
I have.
Well, before I forget, going back to it used to be, a long time ago, it was the 501 building. Remember the old 501 building?
Oh, yes.
Long since gone. So now we're at Myatt Drive, is that correct?
That's right.
And describe that again for me.
It's a building with the crime lab upstairs, the Madison Police Precinct, and the crime scene unit are in the downstairs section of that building.
And you said there was a bay.
Yes, we have 3 bays there for vehicle processing.
And are the bays all in one big room, or is each bay in its own room?
They're separated.
And that's so that contaminants aren't spread around, correct?
Yes, we try to prevent cross-contamination by placing vehicles in different bays at different times.
And how long was the Mazda in the bay?
It arrived on the night of May 30th, and it was towed away on June 3rd.
June 3rd?
Yes,
So it was in that bay for 4 days?
yes,
Actually, 31st,
31st, so 5-ish.
maybe 5.
Right.
And what is done when the car is taken out to clean the bay?
After the vehicle is towed away, we did clean the bays with a pressure washer.
Okay, so it's pressure washed out?
I'm sorry?
You just clean the floor?
Yes, generally.
That's it?
Yes.
While I'm on the subject of cleaning the floor, you found some sort of acid, correct?
No,
No, I'm sorry, you're right. A receipt for some acid.
that's correct, yes.
And what kind of acid was that?
It said smart muriatic acid.
That be used to clean motor oil off of a floor?
Possibly.
It's just an industrial cleaner.
Yes, that's correct.
You said that Blue Star checks to see if there's any blood evidence that's been cleaned, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
What role would bleach have in contaminating a Blue Star test?
I believe that Blue Star does react with bleach as well. That's why it's a presumptive test. So if something reacts under Blue Star, it's not positive for blood, it's just presumptive it could be blood.
So if someone bleached something, Blue Star would show it.
Yes, Blue Star and bleach do react.
In processing a home, is it possible to pull a drain and look into the pipe?
Yes, I believe it would be.
Is it, in processing a pipe, you have to pull it out, or can you do it through a camera, or can you Blue Star a drain without pulling it out? How would you Blue Star
I've never Blue Starred a drain, so I'm not exactly sure how I would go about doing that.
Have a moment, Your Honor. Thank you. Have a good trip.
Thank you.
Just have a couple follow-ups. After you process the vehicle, do you lock it back up?
I don't recall if I locked it up, and I did not seal it again.
Okay. Does it stay secure in that facility, in that bay?
Yes, it stayed in the bay until I had it towed to our impound lot with the police department.
Okay. And then the picture that we introduced of the trunk area, that picture was taken prior to you vacuuming that trunk.
Yes, that's correct.
Thank you.
Should have asked this earlier. The vacuum that you use to vacuum out the trunk, this is not your home dirt devil, is it?
No, it's not.
Is it designed specifically to pick up any possible trace evidence?
It's, I think, just a commercial grade vacuum cleaner. There are two of them. They're mounted on the walls. It's the attachment that collects the items that we're vacuuming.
And it has its own filter system, so every time you use it, it starts fresh and the items can be preserved, correct?
Each attachment has its own filter within, so each area I used a single filter, and then I would change and used a different filter to vacuum a second area.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next witness,
Officer Del Bosco.
Officer Del Bosco. Officer Del Bosco, if you'll step around, step up the stairs. Raise your right hand, each one. Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony about to give to be true and correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, have a seat, please.
Okay, if you would please state your full name and spell it for the court report.
Cassandra Del Bosco, CASSANDRADELBOSCO,
And where are you employed?
Hermitage Patrol, Metro Nashville Police Department.
Okay, and how long have you been a police officer?
14 years.
Now, when you say that you're Hermitage Patrol, can you break that down maybe a little bit and explain to the jurors that assignment?
I work the day shift at Hermitage, Hermitage area.
Okay, and what does it mean, patrol?
I'm a uniformed officer, so I answer calls for service.
Okay, is that different than, let's say, a detective?
Yes.
Okay, and how is that different from being a detective?
We're first responders, so we'd be the first ones on the scene to get a call, whereas a detective would get called out to the scene after the fact or a case later on based on our reports.
Okay, and on Sunday, May 25th of 2014, was your assignment working Hermitage Patrol?
Yes, ma'am.
And on that date, did you respond to 923 Oakvale Drive for a check the welfare call?
I did.
And what is a check the welfare call?
Usually it's just when someone calls, maybe they're concerned about a relative they haven't heard from in a few days, or it can be anything general. Basically, you're just worried about someone.
And who made the call in this case?
It's my understanding that it was Stephanie, the victim's best friend.
Okay, and would that be Stephanie Blaney?
Yes, ma'am.
Now, what time did you respond to that address on Oakvale Drive?
It was around 1:50 p.m.
Okay, and what did you do upon your arrival?
When I first got to the residence, I tried the door, listened to see if I could hear anything. I heard some dogs barking. And then I went around the residence, kind of checked the windows, make sure nothing was open, see if I could see anything, out of order. And after that, then I just walked around to go see if I could, talk to a neighbor because it was a duplex.
Okay, and did you see a neighbor?
I did.
Okay, and did you talk to that neighbor?
I did.
Do you remember if it was the neighbor who actually lived in the duplex 9, which would have been 923A Oakville Drive?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and after speaking with the neighbors, did you become concerned?
I did.
Okay, and after speaking with them, then what did you do?
I immediately, I asked them if they had information for the landlord. And he was able to give me a phone number to try to get in touch with the landlord because I was concerned enough at this point where I felt like I wanted to get into the residence.
Okay, and were you able to contact the landlord?
I was.
Okay, and was he able, first of all, did you request that he let you get into the house somehow?
I did.
Okay, and did you also contact anybody else?
I did. I called my sergeant to the scene after I advised him of what I had.
Okay, and did you also contact Stephanie Blaney to perhaps get more information?
I did. I talked to her on the phone actually several times to try to get as much information as I could.
Now, why is it that you called, and you kind of said this, but just to be clear, why is it that you called your sergeant to the scene?
After I talked to the best friend and talked to the neighbor and went to the residence, I started to kind of get a feeling that there might be more going on. And so I thought I should advise my sergeant and get a second opinion.
Okay, and when you say more going on, can you say, like, what do you mean by that?
Just the timeline of the last time that anybody had contact with her, it started to make me feel like that we at least needed to get in the residence to make sure that there was no one in the residence.
Okay, and did your sergeant arrive?
He did.
And once your sergeant arrived, what happened?
Another neighbor had come outside from the other side of the residence, and he happened to have a ladder that we could get into the back window. We noticed that the back window was actually not open, but we could open it. It wasn't locked.
And why is it that you did that instead of waiting for the landlord?
The landlord had told me that he was going to take 30 minutes to an hour to get to the residence with a key, and it seemed to be he wasn't going to be very helpful. It was kind of becoming frustrating trying to get him to the location.
Okay, so were you and your sergeant able to make entry using the ladder through one of the windows?
Yes. When I entered the window, I immediately noticed that I'm in a child's room because there were bunk beds and child's items, toys and clothing and that kind of stuff.
Now, did your sergeant come through the window too, or only you?
I don't remember him coming through the window with me. I remember going through the window and then at some point opening a door.
Okay, so you land in the child's room, and then what do you do?
I took a cursory look around to make sure there's no persons in there, and I noticed a couple of dogs and some barriers up, and then I opened a door.
And you opened the door to let your sergeant in, or why'd you open the door?
I think I opened the door to let my sergeant in. I'm not sure if he came in the window behind me or if I opened the door to let him in. I'm not 100% sure about that.
Okay.
I don't remember that.
And did you locate Miss Burgess inside the house?
I did not.
And was there any sign of forced entry into the house?
There was no signs of forced entry. There was no personal belongings that were immediately obvious, like a cell phone or a purse. No signs of a struggle.
Okay. And were there you mentioned that there were dogs inside the house.
Yes, ma'am.
And do you remember where they were?
They were kind of between the living room and the kitchen area, and there was some kind of like wooden barrier up to keep them contained to some degree.
Do you remember if the barrier had them contained just in the kitchen, or were they contained in the kitchen and the living room, or do you remember?
It seems like they couldn't get to the bedrooms. That's what it seems like I remember.
Okay. And what did you do about the dogs?
I noticed that they still had food and water. They didn't seem to be in distress. So after we cleared the residence, I talked to the neighbors about possibly feeding the dogs. They seemed to be, pretty familiar with the animals, and the animals, were comfortable. So I also think I talked to Stephanie about possibly coming by to check on them at some point.
Okay. And when you say you cleared the home, can you explain to the jurors what that means?
Usually when you're just looking for a person, you're not going to be opening small drawers and stuff like that. Just a closet and, making sure that, like the tub, you pull back the curtain or whatever, that's basically just check every room, anywhere you could find a body that would be obvious.
And was that your purpose for going into the home that day?
Right.
To see if you could locate Miss Burgess?
Yes, ma'am.
Now, did you leave, when you left, or did you end up leaving the house after you did that? After you cleared the residence?
Right. I mean, we exited the residence, but we're still on the scene.
Okay. And did you leave her house unlocked?
I did, actually. I conferred with my sergeant on that. I was concerned about the dogs and, you know, their ability to be fed and watered, so it seemed like the neighbors had a really good watch on the property.
And the neighbors being the duplex neighbors?
Yes, ma'am.
Now, at that time, did you know that it was a crime scene?
I did not.
Now, what else did you do while y'all were at the scene?
We also noticed that there was a car on the property that was registered to the victim. I believe there was a purse in the car, but I don't 100% remember that. I think there might have been. Also, at some point, talked to a relative, and I completed a missing persons report.
When you say a relative, is that a relative of Miss Burgess?
I want to say I talked to her dad. I don't know if he came to the scene or if I talked to him on the phone through Stephanie, but usually when we do a missing persons report, we want to talk to a relative. We don't tend to take those from a non-relative unless there's some sort of extenuating circumstance that makes us believe that that person needs to be reported as missing.
And you believe that you may have spoken to her father, Mr. Bill Burgess?
Yes, ma'am.
Now, did you also notify the cold case unit?
I did. My sergeant and I pretty much made that decision to notify them.
And, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, when we have a missing persons case that's outstanding, that we can't locate, cold case is the unit that gets notified for that.
For missing persons?
Right, for missing persons.
And I think you mentioned this, but did you complete a missing person report regarding Miss Nicole Burgess?
I did.
And if you can, just kind of give us a little details about what is a missing person report, when do you fill it out, what's in there?
Yeah, there seems to be some myths about when we can fill them out and can't. There's no time frame on when you can report a person missing. It doesn't have to be 48 hours. You can do it immediately on the scene, 2 minutes, it doesn't matter. It has all their information on there, where they were last seen, where they might be heading, all their demographic information, any kind of medical conditions that you might have, anyone that had last contact with them. There's a spot to put relatives on there, any known locations, favorite places, pretty much everything you could think of related to you as a person, where you would be, where you would end up. And then, of course, there's a narrative section where you kind of dictate why this person is missing or whatever information you have.
Okay, and when you say demographic information, does that include the person's name?
Name, date of birth, height, weight, clothing, anything that you have about them.
It would also include the person's address, social security number,
Right,
driver's
yes.
license?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And did the report from Ms. Burgess include all this information you've previously testified about?
It did.
And how did you get this information?
Most of it I had to run off of my computer.
And is that like where you can pull up a driver's license for somebody?
Right. I was able to find her name based on her date of birth and residence, and then from there find her driver's license.
And did you also get some information from Ms. Blaney or Mr. Burgess?
Yes, I did.
Now, what did you do after completing this report?
It has to be, we have to send a bolo out on the computer, which basically what that is every single person on duty at that moment, once you send that bolo out, they will get it on their computer. It also goes into NCIC, which is the National Crime Index, I'm not sure, but it goes nationwide. So after Records gets it, they enter it. It happens pretty simultaneously. Then they get it and they send it out all across the country. So any person, officer that comes in contact with that person or individual, if they ran them by their license or social security number, it would come up as showing as a missing person.
And the BOLO you mentioned, is that something that's countywide, whereas
Right.
the NCIC is nationwide?
Right, yes ma'am.
So, and you kind of mentioned this, but if Ms. Burgess was stopped by the police anywhere in the country and they
Right.
ran any of her information, would that
It would,
alert them?
yeah, it would immediately tell you that she was missing.
Now, to your knowledge, has the Nashville Police Department received notification from any other police departments regarding Ms. Burgess's whereabouts?
Not that I know of.
Now, I'm going to show you some pictures and ask if you recognize them. Okay, I'm going to start first with A. Is this what, with all these pictures I'm going to be asking you, is this how it looked when you arrived at the house on May the 25th of 2014?
Okay.
So is this how the front of the house appeared on that day?
Yes, ma'am.
And do you see anything in that picture to note?
Her vehicle and I guess that's a police van or something there. That obviously wasn't there when I was there.
Okay, and her vehicle, you can actually touch the screen if you...
Yeah, her vehicle, I guess is that a Volkswagen? That's what it looks like. The yellow.
Okay, and can you kind of circle it with your finger?
Yeah.
Okay, so again, that was there on May 25th, 2014.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm going to show you B. Do you remember if this was the state of things on May 25th, 2014?
I mean, the living room, that's as close as I can remember it.
C, another shot of the living room. Anything stand out as being obviously different from when you went in that day?
No, ma'am.
D, the kitchen. Again, anything stand out as being different?
No, ma'am.
E, same question.
Nothing different.
F,
Nothing different.
now do we see in here, you talked about a barrier with the dogs.
Yeah, that looks like the barrier that I remember.
Okay, can you circle it for us, please? And when you went in, do you remember where that barrier
It
was?
would have been more across the door.
And you can show with your finger.
Like it would have covered the door entry.
G, does that kind of have the appearance that the hallway was when you made entry?
Yes, ma'am.
H, this is how the hallway floor looked.
Yes, ma'am.
I, remember going into Miss Burgess's room?
Yeah, I took a cursory look in there, but yeah.
Nothing strikes you as
No, ma'am,
obviously
nothing-
different.
Yeah.
J, is this again in Miss Burgess's room?
Yes, ma'am. Nothing changed.
K, is this the room that you landed in when you came in through the window?
It is.
Again, anything strike you as obviously different?
No, nothing.
L, can we actually see the window you came in through?
Yes, that's the window that would have come in.
Okay, can you circle it with your finger, please? And then M, again, from what you can remember, is this a fair and accurate portrayal of the bathroom on May 25th of 2014?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, Your Honor, I ask that this be marked. The next exhibit is A through M.
11.
And if I could please have a moment.
A cross-examination.
Good afternoon, sir.
Jim Todd, I represent Mr. Cannon. How long have you been a Metro police officer?
Just over 14 years.
And have you been, what precinct are you in now?
Hermitage?
Been in Hermitage the whole time?
I have.
Days? Days?
Oh, just maybe 2.5 years on days.
Lucky you.
Right.
And obviously you went through the police academy and received training before that, correct?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, sir.
And during your 14 years, you've been to some crime scenes, correct?
Yeah, I've been to a few.
And you recalled via, I guess, radio on this. You didn't receive a phone call from Miss Blaney. You got a call from the dispatch, correct?
Right, I got a dispatch call to the location.
But oftentimes dispatch will tell you who the complainant is, correct?
It's on your screen.
Okay.
It's at
So,
the bottom
on the
of
computer screen.
Yes, sir.
So you got a welfare check call from a Stephanie Blaney to go to the residence and check on Miss Burgess. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And you arrived at the scene and all the doors were secured?
Yes.
And is that when you went and spoke to a neighbor?
I checked the door. There's only one door, so I checked it's kind of on the side of the house. I looked at the windows just to make sure none of them were like cracked, and then I want to say maybe he was standing, one of them was standing outside, and that's why I went around to talk to the neighbor.
And he lived in the duplex just on
Right.
the other side. Do you remember his name?
I don't.
Have you seen him in court today?
I have.
Was it the same person?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Mr. McCavanagh? Don't know, but the same person that you saw in court today
Yes.
was the person you saw the day you went there, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so you spoke to Mr. McCavanagh, and was there any other neighbor that came? His roommate, or
His
somebody else?
roommate showed up at some point. I don't remember if it was immediately or, 5 minutes, 10, I don't remember. But I do remember seeing another gentleman.
And did you end up talking with Miss Blaney yourself?
I talked to her on the phone.
Okay. How did that happen?
When I was trying to get more information, since she was the person that called us, I called her to try to,
So dispatch gave you the number?
yes.
And maybe that's how you got the landlord's number?
No, I don't think I got the landlord's number from her. I think I got that from the
From Mr.
neighbor.
McCavanagh or the neighbor?
Right.
And so it wasn't until you concluded that the landlord wasn't going to help out a whole lot
Right.
that you figured you needed to go in the house.
Yes.
And at that point, did you call for your sergeant before you went in the house?
Yes.
Okay, but not,
No.
you didn't have a warrant, and you have to have exigent circumstances. So you wanted to clear it with your sergeant, correct?
Yes.
Your sergeant made you go in instead of he going in. What was that about? Or she going
Well, I'm a little bit smaller than him
in?
at
So
the
you
time.
got a ladder from the trampoline next door
Yeah. Yes.
and climbed in through the window. All right. And when you climbed into the window, you went directly to the door to let your sergeant in, correct?
No, I did a look
Okay.
around. I'm not going to put me and my sergeant in
In danger, you're
before
right,
I
I'm
let him
sorry.
in. Yeah.
And then you let your sergeant.
That's the only thing I can't remember. I don't know if I actually let him in the door, or if he came in the window behind me.
Okay.
That's what I can't remember. But I do know I opened the door.
So you and the sergeant were both in the residence, correct?
Yes.
And you're trained, or you have received training, and plus you've had experience of being in crime scenes, and you wrote in your report that there was no sign of a struggle in the home, correct?
Yes, sir.
Had you felt this was a crime scene, would you have sealed, or had your sergeant seal the house and call for ID?
I mean, it depends. If there was like a broken table leg or something, maybe I would have just taken photos of it and put it on the report. Or if there was, something more severe, it would depend on what kind of
A
scene.
pile of blood and a bloody knife.
Right, of course, I would have called ID and,
So at some point, you and your sergeant have to make a determination of whether you're going to release the home and not do anything, or you're going to seal the home and call for ID, correct?
yes,
Okay, and I'm just doing the job. You both determined that you were going to release the home, not call ID, not seal it, correct?
right,
And you allowed several people to go into the home and walk through while you and your sergeant were not there, correct?
I did not let anyone else in the home except for me and my sergeant.
So if Mr. McCavanagh said that he went in the home with his roommate while you and your sergeant were there and was there for a while,
You're not going to object to the foundation of that question, or the structure.
then he would be mistaken. That's the finish of my question.
I do not recall allowing him to come in. He may have gone in afterwards to check on the dogs, but I do not recall at that time letting him in the scene.
And did you leave the doors unlocked?
And we did leave the door unlocked.
Okay. Is there a reason you left the door unlocked?
I'm not
I
going to
mean,
say
for the
say
dogs?
that it didn't make me uncomfortable to leave the door unlocked, but I conferred with my sergeant on that and with the dogs. And it wasn't the most comfortable thing to do, but yeah, we left the door unlocked with the understanding that the neighbors would check. And
Did Mr. McCavanagh tell you anything that raised your suspicion that this may be a crime scene?
Can I get a judge to see your say?
They sustained.
Now, the barrier was up keeping the dogs in the kitchen, correct?
Yes, sir.
So there were not dog feces throughout the house.
There was dog feces in the kitchen, living room area, but not, I don't remember seeing it in any of the bedrooms.
Did you smell anything in particular?
I mean,
Dog feces?
right, I mean, it wasn't overwhelming. It wasn't like a, excessive amount to where I felt like I was going to throw up.
Right, I understand. But nothing else.
Right.
And you talked about the missing persons database, correct?
Yes, sir.
And I'm just looking at your report. Bolo distributed 5/25/14 at 1,600 hours.
Yes, sir.
Is that what that is? When you say be on the lookout for, that's the Bolo?
Yes, sir.
So that went beyond Metro, beyond Tennessee, and into the national. No?
The BOLO goes countywide.
Okay.
To every officer that's working at the time frame on their computers, and dispatch also puts it out.
And when does it go nationwide?
It's kind of a double thing that you do. You enter it into your system on your computer, and then it goes to records. And so after you do that, it gets sent out to all the cars, and then they enter it into NCIC
Who's the they?
records. The records personnel enter it.
And-
It's called a teletype.
Okay. And do you have to fill out a form or request that specifically, or does it automatically happen?
You do a paper report for a missing person. You kind of do double duty. And then you also, when you fill out electronically on the computer, you send an email or a free form, which is just a term for the form. So, yeah, it's a request basically to have it sent out.
And the information that's placed in the computer is name,
It's the pertinent information about the individual. So name, full name, date of birth, social security number, driver's license number, address, last known location, possible destination, any medical conditions, vehicle, and then there's a place for a narrative.
and I know that you guys are hitched up to the Department of Safety's website where you can get the driver's license and all the demographic information, correct?
Yes, sir.
Does that also provide you the social?
It does.
So that information is placed in the computer, correct?
Yes.
Now, your experience as a police officer, when you come across a person and they got pulled over for a traffic ticket, if you go to your computer to say, I want to look up Jim Todd, is it going to check me in the National Missing Persons Database?
It does if I run your license through the license part of the, not to get confusing. If I ran your criminal history, it would not show up in my, but if I ran your.
I hope it wouldn't happen.
No, what? If I ran a criminal history inquiry, it wouldn't show up in my system that way. But if I ran the license, it would hit on a nation, anything missing anywhere.
Automatically, or do you have to request that?
You do not have to request it. There's 3 or 4 responses that you get, and if that one is blank, you know you don't have anything. But that second response that you get after the license comes up will be a missing persons or an out-of-state warrant.
Okay, so if you FI, field interview, FI meaning field, if you FI someone walking down the street and just put their name in, date of birth for criminal, it's not going to go to the database, correct?
Right, it would not be in the NCIC.
So only more than likely a traffic violation where you put in the license number that's going to go.
Even a basic traffic violation is not necessarily going to show up in another state if we don't share that information. But if you teletype somebody as a missing person, that is going to show up when I run your license.
And so do we know if California pulls over somebody and they say their name's Nikki Burgess, how does that work? Do they have the same database you do?
The personal knowledge.
Right,
Well-
sustained. I think she's answered your question, Mr.
Are you aware that Ms. Burgess is still on the National Missing Person Database?
I'm not aware, I have not run her.
Emma Yarn?
Well,
Thank you, ma'am.
Yes, sir.
any redirect? Okay, may she be excused? Thank you, ma'am, you may be
Thank you.
excused. We got about 15 minutes. Do you have a short witness or?
She can be released.
Okay, she can be released. Thank you. Oh, well, do I hear a motion? You want to go home? Okay. All right. So we're going to end a little early today. I don't hear any negative. So we do same admonitions. I think, is there a Predators game tonight? Oh, so you can watch that. Just don't listen to any news or any of that. Now, do not discuss this case with anyone. Do not let anyone discuss it with you. Just be here a little earlier tomorrow because there's a lot of people at come in the courthouse for the 9 o'clock docket. So if you'll get here a little earlier, you'll get a parking place, and then just meet downstairs. We'll bring you up, and we'll just get us started as soon as we can. Okay? And we'll pick up where we left off today. Leave your notebooks in your chair. All right, who's going to be your first witness tomorrow?
This is what we're talking about. It's probably going to be one of our ID people. I'm not sure.
Okay, you've got Boughton, Linville,
Joe Williams.
and Joe Williams. Okay. All right. Are they?
Bill will dovetail from Ms. Whitaker to clear, to make that one package. I would suggest that, just to get that out of the cars out of the way.
Linville and Down.
And,
Okay. How many more pictures are we going to have?
well, what I'm gonna do tonight, Your Honor, I'm taking the exhibit sheet home, and I'm gonna try not to duplicate what's already been introduced.
Okay, I was going to say because you can refer back to the other exhibits.
Right, I'm gonna focus on what was, the evidence that was collected, those pictures.
Okay. All right.
I didn't get exhibit, 10.
Yeah, we have to redo it. The general term is here.
It just missed a couple of letters.
Did you make fun of me?
Wait, a couple of letters in
Missed
there.
a couple of letters.
Okay. All right. Anything else we need to do?
Yeah, Lisa did.
Okay. Well, we'll pick up where we left off, unless there's something we need to talk about. Mr. Todd, is there anything we need to talk about?
Sorry?
Do we have anything you need to bring up?
No, just Mr. Thurman and Christine and I talked about